This is Marshawn Lynch. But on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. So I'm here to make sure you don't miss any of the action this football season. With Prize Picks, it's good to be right. With millions of members and billions of dollars awarded in winnings, Prize Picks is the best place to put your takes to the test. The app is really simple to use and available in 40 plus states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Just pick 2 or more players across any sport, pick more or less on their projections, and if you're right, you can cash in. With simple stats and fan-friendly policies, Prize Picks is the best place to make your picks. Most importantly, they don't play about your paper. All transactions on the apps are fast, safe, and secure.
Download the Prize Picks app today and use code SPOTIFY to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code SPOTIFY to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
The Stone Zone on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
You are now entering the Stone Zone. Yesterday, the New York Times released a bombshell report tying pedophile and child sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein to Barack Obama, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Rockefellers, the Pritzker family, Bill Clinton, and more, but notably did not tie him to Donald J. Trump. So while the Democrats and the mockingbird media counterparts are trying to distract you with this fake Jeffrey Epstein Trump birthday card as part of their new hoax, the New York Times released a bombshell report detailing Epstein's relationship with J.P. Morgan and several big-name Epstein clients, including Netanyahu, Obama, the Rockefellers, and more. Epstein evidently introduced J.P. Morgan executives to men who would become lucrative clients, such as Google co-founder Sergey Brin, also to global leaders like Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel. In 2011, Epstein granted J.P. Morgan's investment bankers in Israel an audience with the Israeli leader. A bank spokesman said that J.P. Morgan neither needed nor sought Epstein's help for meetings with any government leaders. Epstein, in the words of a close friend and former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, who visited the island multiple times, was a collector of people. Epstein told J.P. Morgan legal counsel that prominent names could vouch for his character. "Go talk to Bill Gates about me," Epstein said at one point, according to the New York Times. Epstein also told J.P. Morgan's chief executive that he managed money for the Rockefellers. A 2003 J.P. Morgan internal report put Epstein's net worth at about $300 million. How Epstein went from being a near penniless math teacher at a private boys' school in Manhattan to being worth $300 million is still an open question. The report, which hasn't been previously disclosed until yesterday, noted that Epstein's occupation was advising wealthy individuals like Leslie Wexner, the billionaire operator of brands like Victoria's Secret and The Limited. However, bank documents at the time did not list any other clients. Wexner, it should be noted, was a Republican, is a major donor to the Republican Party in those days, was particularly close to the Bush family, supporter of both George H.W. Bush and later George W. Bush. Perhaps that's why, when Epstein was arrested in 2005 and charged with sex crimes in Florida, Alberto Gonzales, Attorney General of the United States under George W. Bush, specifically instructed federal prosecutors in Florida to handle the case without kicking up a political circus. It's interesting to note that J.P. Morgan's report also showed that Epstein provided financial banking for alleged Epstein co-conspirator Jean-Luc Brunel, who allegedly trafficked victims via his MC2 modeling agency. Burnell, like Epstein, was thought to have killed himself. It is still interesting to me that the New York medical examiner, the highly respected Dr. Michael Baden, was retained by Epstein's family to conduct a medical examination of Epstein's body and insisted that the injuries to Epstein sustained in his neck, where 3 different bones were broken, were not consistent with him having hung himself. It was interesting also that Baden noted that he personally had performed autopsies on more than 1,000 hanging victims. Former J.P. Morgan executive Jess Staley said in a deposition, according to the Times, that a parade of Epstein referrals included Bill Gates, Sultan Ahmed bin Salem, and an Emirati billionaire, but not all of those references became clients. J.P. Morgan also took Ghislaine Maxwell on as a client per Epstein's referral. Epstein actually transferred millions of dollars from Maxwell's J.P. Morgan account, including $7.4 million, to buy a green Sikorsky helicopter to fly people to his Little St. James Island, dubbed by my friend Sean Hannity as Orgy Island. J.P. Morgan wired money from his account to bank accounts in Russia and Eastern Europe, where young women were being drawn into Epstein's sex trafficking network, according to sealed court records. Epstein said in an email that he could push Obama into naming J.P. Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon as Treasury Secretary in Obama's administration. He also said that Obama economic advisor and former Harvard President Lawrence Larry Summers was friendly with Epstein. We know that Summers, who later served as Treasury Secretary of the United States, visited Epstein's island multiple times based on the FAA manifest that I published in my 2015 books, The Clintons' War on Women. Staley also confided, according to the Times report, that Epstein had been working with the Pritzker family on a substantial financial deal, and he detailed the bank's talks with the Federal Reserve about how to stabilize the financial system. Epstein urged the J.P. Morgan executive Staley to embrace China, perhaps by moving some banking operations there. He even arranged for Staley to get a quick tutorial about China from an Oxford-educated expert. In 2007, according to the New York Times, tens of millions of dollars poured into Epstein's account from billionaire Leon Black, a founder of the private equity firm Apollo Global Management. Black himself, who, according to the Times, was a J.P. Morgan client, said the payments were for Epstein's advice about taxes and estate planning. At the same time, the media has gone crazy over a birthday card that was allegedly sent by Donald Trump to Jeffrey Epstein. I've examined this birthday card. First of all, I've known Donald Trump for 50 years. I've never known him to draw. I also have never known him to sign only his first name, which looks suspiciously like a forgery to me. Yet the wording that he and Epstein shared some secret seems extraordinarily suspicious. This card, in my view, is a complete and total fugazi. It's a fraud. I should note that President Trump is suing the Wall Street Journal over their allegation. I wonder what Trump will call the Wall Street Journal after he owns it. In the meantime, there is a former president and longtime friend of Jeffrey Epstein who is in the fake news, but tried once again to smear Trump regarding his ties to the deceased pedophile. It was reported yesterday that the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform released the first batch of documents from Epstein's estate this past Monday. Including these documents received was the birthday card compiled by Ghislaine Maxwell for Jeffrey Epstein's 50th birthday. The last will and testament of Epstein's immediately preceding August 8, 2019, the September 24, 2007 non-prosecution agreement between the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida and Jeffrey Epstein, entries from Epstein's address and contact books from January 1st, 1990 through August 10th, 2019, and information about Epstein's known bank accounts. The disgraced Wall Street Journal also leaked a supposedly suggestive letter, as I say, from Trump to Epstein that the president allegedly signed. But the White House have pointed out that Trump's actual signature actually looks quite different. Now, Fox News reports that the House Oversight Committee has released a second batch of files, including a message from former President Bill Clinton that was also included in Epstein's birthday book. In the letter, Clinton hails their friendship and Epstein's childlike curiosity. Considering Epstein's select predilection towards minors, that's definitely an interesting and creepy choice of words from the former president. Here's the actual message in full, since the mainstream media is hyping up the alleged birthday card from Trump, at the same time seeking to ignore the birthday card from Bill Clinton. It says, Jeffrey, happy 50th. It's reassuring, isn't it, to have lasted as long across all the years of learning and knowing, adventures, and also to have your childlike curiosity and the drive to make a difference and the solace of your friends. Don't expect the media and the Democrats to go nuts over this card, despite the fact that Clinton's long-lasting ties to Epstein are absolutely clear. As I reported here in the Stone Zone, between the time that Epstein was first charged in Florida in 2005 and the time that he ultimately pled to one count of solicitation, Epstein actually made a $25,000 contribution to the Clintons, and they accepted that money. There is no evidence of Jeffrey Epstein having ever donated to President Donald Trump. As we have pointed out previously, Trump cut Epstein off in late 2004. That was before Epstein was exposed as a sex criminal and before he was charged in Florida. I do think that it is important to examine the 2005 period because the police chief of Palm Beach, Michael Ryder, who I interviewed for my book, turned over to the state's attorney an airtight case for child sex trafficking that included 33 underage girls. He also turned over a case for statutory rape. The chief was shocked when the state's attorney came back with one count of solicitation. After he complained, the state's attorney bumped that up to a solicitation of a minor. More serious, but not nearly as serious as child sex trafficking. Epstein ended up pleading guilty and then, strangely enough, got an 18-month sentence, of which he only served 15 months. But unlike every other sex criminal convicted in the Sunshine State, Epstein was allowed to serve his sentence in the air-conditioned Palm Beach County Jail. And in fact, under the terms of his release, he was only required to be incarcerated from 6 o'clock in the morning from 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock, meaning during the day, he was allowed to roam free and go about his business. They continue to smear Donald Trump without evidence. It is absolutely clear that, unlike Bill Clinton, Donald Trump never visited the island. Donald Trump never visited Epstein's palatial home in Manhattan. Donald Trump never went to Epstein's ranch in New Mexico. Donald Trump never went to Epstein's apartment in Paris. This endless smear by Democrats who keep insisting that Donald Trump is hiding something is really getting tedious. I would note that the Trump Justice Department entered motions in both federal courts in Florida and in New York asking that the grand jury testimony regarding the two indictments of Jeffrey Epstein be completely and totally released. And it is Democrat federal judges in both jurisdictions that refused to do so. So if there's a cover-up, it is actually continues being constituted by the Democrats, who, as I think, are trying to use this to distract from the fact that they have no plan to make our neighborhoods and communities safer again, no plans to bring down the cost of housing, no plans to create jobs, no plans to control inflation, no plans to seal our borders, no plans to deport dangerous illegals. Their entire political message seems to be, well, we hate Donald Trump, and that's about it. I'm Roger Stone. You're listening to the Stone Zone here on the Red Apple Audio Networks. When we come back, turns out Donald Trump was right again when it comes to both jobs and interest rates. And we're going to examine the curious case of Dr. Lisa Cook, the Federal Reserve Board member who's been caught red-handed lying on her mortgage forms, something that you and I would go to jail for if we did it. We'll be right back.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Stone Zone on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're back in the Stone Zone. A new jobs report indicates that, well, President Donald Trump was right again. In this case, about the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the fact that they have been manipulating the jobs reports in an attempt to help former President Joe Biden. An annual revision of non-farm payrolls data from the year ending in March 2025 showed a steep drop of 911,000 jobs from the earlier estimates. These revisions were only 50% higher than the adjustment from last year, and the highest adjustment on record since 2002. The average job growth was 76,000, far less than originally reported during the final years of the Biden regime. President Trump fired Erica McIntyre from the position of head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, accusing her of fudging the numbers due to her partisan agenda. He has now been proven to be completely and totally correct. The White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, said, "This is exactly why we need new leadership to restore trust and confidence in the Bureau of Labor Statistics data on behalf of the financial markets, businesses, policymakers, and families that rely on this data to make major decisions." So it turns out the economy was not on the strong footing that Joe Biden claimed it was before Donald Trump came into office, and he has upended the status quo on trade. Although the process of enacting tariffs can be messy, they will ultimately put America into a better position. In the month of June, we had a surplus in the United States for the first time in 15 years. It remains to be seen whether Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell will have an illegal meeting of the Federal Reserve in the middle of next week. Illegal because of one particular Federal Reserve Board governor who President Donald Trump has fired. That would be Federal Reserve Board Governor Lisa Cook. Cook is challenging the president's authority to fire her in a federal lawsuit in the District of Columbia. What's troubling is that particular lawsuit got referred to federal court judge Gia Cobb. Turns out that Judge Gia Cobb belongs to the same black women's college sorority as Lisa Cook. Third member of that sorority is the intellectual giant Joy Reid. Whether the D.C. Clerk of Courts, Andrea Cesar, can prove that this was actually a referral by random selection remains to be seen, but House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan is investigating that very question. I'm Roger Stone. This is the Stone Zone right here on the Red Apple Audio Networks. Whatever you do, don't touch that dial because, well, we'll be right back.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Leading a business today means constantly adapting. On the Executive Insights podcast, brought to you by AWS, global leaders share how they're making tough calls, testing bold ideas, and putting innovation into practice, generative AI included. If you're looking for real stories behind what's working, this is it. Subscribe to the Executive Insights podcast today, available now on all major podcast platforms.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Recently, we asked some people about sharing their New York Times accounts.
My name is Dana. I am a subscriber to the New York Times, but my husband isn't. And it would be really nice to be able to share a recipe or an article or compete with him in Wordle or Connections. Thank you.
Dana, we heard you. Introducing the New York Times Family Subscription. One subscription, up to 4 separate logins for anyone in your life. Find out more at nytimes.com/family.
Claptrap here. 2 big things are coming this fall. Borderlands 4 and Spotify Wrapped. So stop listening to that one playlist that reminds you of your ex who only made you cry. Talking about you, Veronica. And pre-order Borderlands 4, coming out September 12th.
Rated mature.
The Stone Zone on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back into the Stone Zone. One of my favorite quotes is from President Theodore Roosevelt, who said, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcomings, but who actually strives to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who, at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat." Joining us now is State Representative Jody Barrett. He is a proud Tennessee state legislator, and he is a man who has climbed into the arena. We don't endorse candidates here on the Stone Zone. It's against our policy, but we do showcase young men and women who get into the arena to fight for the things that they believe in, and we're honored to have Jody Barrett join us now. Welcome, Jody, to the Stone Zone.
Well, thank you so much for having me, sir.
So you are a husband, a father, small business owner, a Christian conservative, proud Tennessean, and based on mutual friends of ours, I hear that you never back down from a fight. And for some crazy reason, you want to go to Congress, not because you want to be somebody, but because you want to actually do something. I admire that spirit. And I like the fact that you're prepared to take on the establishment, even when it's members of your own party. You've taken on the Nashville establishment and you've won. You've been endorsed by the Freedom Caucus, and now you're vying to be the congressman from Tennessee's 7th District. I guess a place I'd like to start is on the question of the safety of your major cities. We've seen how President Trump has intervened by utilizing the National Guard and, in the case of D.C., federalizing the police in order to make the District of Columbia safer. We've talked extensively here on the Stone Zone about the potential for President Trump to mobilize the National Guard in Chicago, which is swiftly emerging as the murder capital of the world. Do you think necessary for President Trump to mobilize the National Guard for the city of Memphis?
Well, certainly think that the leadership in Memphis, which has been disjointed and certainly ineffective for as long as I can remember as a 51-year-old man, that the city of Memphis, the people that live there in that city, are begging for someone to do something to improve the conditions of living and safety in their city, and it's certainly not coming from the locally elected officials that they have. I would love to see our governor here in Tennessee do more to step in to help that situation out, but it may just be that President Trump is the man that is necessary to at this time in order to take the steps and make the strong decisions that it's going to take in order to clean that city up.
I note that you are in an 11-way race with, therefore, 10 other candidates. And President Donald Trump is so incredibly popular among Republican voters. I worked for President Ronald Reagan, who was extraordinarily popular, but I've never seen polling numbers like those of Donald J. Trump. He even exceeds the great Ronald Reagan. I have every confidence that in this 11-way race, every candidate, even those who are really rhinos, are suddenly claiming to be America First Trump Republicans. What distinguishes you as a reliable America First conservative?
Well, I think my 3-year record in the state legislature is something that nobody else in this race has to hang their hat on. I think if you look at the way I have voted, I'm the only candidate in the race that has a 100% conservative voting record awarded by 2 different agencies. You look at that, and then you also look at the type of bills that I have sponsored and filed and advocated for since I've been here. The voters don't have to guess what type of conservative legislator I would be, or if I would actually be a conservative. They would know that. But the Trump administration, the Trump agenda, I've been running those types of bills from the moment I arrived here with election integrity bills, anti-illegal immigration bills, things that address our medical freedom and promote liberty and autonomy. I've been doing that for 3 years straight, and I would hope that I would be able to have the opportunity to do the same thing in D.C.
Now, when radical leftists stormed the Tennessee Capitol, I noticed that you didn't blink. You stood up, you voted to expel the instigators, and you aggressively took the fight to the lying corporate media, which completely distorted what actually happened that day. Tell us, in your own words, exactly what transpired.
Well, we had 2 young legislators that were freshmen, one that came in with me and another one that had come in the middle of that session, that decided to use their platform and their voice in a way to steal the spotlight away from the victims of the Covenant School shooting and make it about them and turn this into a way for them to raise millions of dollars and increase their political capital here in the state and across the country. And they did just that. After they were expelled, they went on a tour of every possible media outlet that you could think of that would give them comfort and shield and the spotlight that they did not deserve. And honestly, it was sickening to watch.
I note that Tennessee, I believe, is an open carry state, a state where conservatives cherish their Second Amendment rights, yet incredibly ran as an outsider businessman, Republican for governor, is putting forward a red flag gun grab. This is a vitally important issue. You have been a leader against the governor's proposals, a governor I might know of your own party. Why is this so important, and how does it shape your fight overall against federal overreach?
Well, I think we saw that what happens when you have a leader that allows the politics of the moment to interfere with his judgment, which is exactly what happened after the Covenant School shooting. He immediately started advocating for a red flag law to be passed in our legislature, even though we were already in the near the end of that session. And he did not take no for an answer and came back over that summer and called a special session. I was one of 4 Republicans that voted to adjourn that special session before it ever started. Thankfully, we were able to defeat that measure in the special session, and I came back that following year and drafted and filed and got passed the anti-red flag law in Tennessee, which preempts the entire area of that law to the state level so that these liberal cities like Memphis and Nashville and Knoxville don't start creating their own ordinances at the local level.
Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna of Florida, who has emerged as a real firebrand, and I admit to you, by the way, that I did not initially, as an individual, prior to my even having this show, I did not support her candidacy. I turned out to be completely wrong. She's been a guest on this show now several times, whether it is her leadership and making sure that all of the documents and videos, audios, and evidence regarding the assassination of John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, and Dr. Martin Luther King are ultimately released to the American people, or her fight to end insider trading by members of Congress, she really is, to me, a beacon of the new style America First conservative. She's alienated some in her own party because she's such an ardent reformer. How do you feel about the proposal she's put forward to ban insider trading? In fact, I would suggest banning all stock trading by members of Congress.
Well, it cannot be argued that there's not an advantage to having knowledge about what type of impact that certain legislation might have as it's coming down the pike. All too often, the public doesn't know exactly what's been going on behind closed doors as legislation is being drafted and negotiated. Sometimes even our own members of Congress don't get to read these bills before they actually vote on them under the former majority that the Democrats held. And so this type of structure where people have that type of inside access and knowledge certainly opens the door for them to take advantage of that to improve their own financial condition. And that is simply not the way America has ever operated. And it certainly should be outlawed and banned by all members of Congress from being able to take advantage of their position in that way.
I want to ask you now about the fight to make America healthy again. Secretary of HHS Robert Kennedy has come under heavy, heavy fire from the Democrats because of the changes he's making in national health policy. He's been successful in removing certain toxic substances, dyes, and other ingredients in our food. To me, that is a big victory in itself. It just boggles the mind that you can buy a box of breakfast cereal in the United States and it includes all of these dangerous additives. When you buy the same brand in Europe, those additives are already illegal and banned. Now he is cutting back the childhood vaccination mandate for infants and for children, specifically pertaining to COVID-19, but also other vaccinations. Then when we examine where the Democrat legislators, particularly in the Senate, who are attacking him, questioning his motives, demanding his resignation, are getting their campaign funds, they've all taken millions of dollars from Big Pharma. Where do you stand in this fight?
Well, I think what we're seeing, the fight that Mr. Kennedy is in is indicative of this unholy alliance that exists between big pharma, big ag, big food, big corporate America, who they're all kind of intermingled and working together because an unhealthy American, it becomes a consumer for life of not only the foods that they have to buy and eat, but if we make them sick along the way by what we're feeding them, then they become customers of the pharmacy companies. And it's just they're all feeding off of themselves from cradle to grave. We are seen as marks that money can be made off of. And that's why I think we see such a spirited and virulent opposition to what Mr. Kennedy is trying to do. And I applaud the president for giving him the leash and room to fight this fight and take it to the American people and let the public decide for themselves what is the right thing for us.
I agree. We've talked about it in yesterday's show very extensively. I guess if I had a role model in the House from Tennessee, it would be Tim Burchett, who I love having on the show. I love Tim Burchett because he says the things that other people are thinking, but they won't say. He doesn't care what people think of him. He cares about the issues. He cares about standing up for the U.S. Constitution. That, to me, is the ideal. If you got elected to Congress, I'm praying that you would be like him.
Well, I have the pleasure of calling Tim a friend. I came up to D.C. at the beginning of this campaign, as most candidates do, to do the dog and pony show and do the 15-minute speed dating meetings with everybody that you have to meet. And I spent about 45 minutes with Congressman Burchett, and to his credit, he told me, "What are you doing here? There's nothing up here for you but money and enemies. Go back home and talk to your people, and that's how you're going to get elected. As long as you do that, you'll be fine." And so he was right, as he generally is. And so I've come back and spent the most of my time just trying to make sure I'm in front of as many people as I can here locally, and not worried about the other side of things.
All right, we're going to have to wrap it up there. Jody Barrett, thank you very much for joining us today in the Stone Zone. Folks, don't go away, because we'll be right back with more hot political news on the other side.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Only Murders in the Building, Season 5.
The hit Hulu original is back.
The night Lester died, he was talking with this mobster.
Was he killed in a hit? We need to go face to face with the mob.
Get ready for a season.
Buongiorno, signore.
Oh, this is how I die.
You can't refuse.
You're going to save the day, like you always do, by being smart, sharp, and almost always by mistake.
The Hulu original series, Only Murders in the Building, premieres September 9th. Streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply. New episodes Tuesdays.
The Stone Zone on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Stone Zone. It turns out when the Federal Emergency Management Administration, or FEMA, employees were supposed to be providing help and assistance to Americans stricken by terrible national disasters and tragedies, they were instead sending sexual text messages to foreign nationals, as well as watching illicit pornography while on the clock. 2 FEMA employees have been fired after the Department of Homeland Security Insider Threat Program found that they were up to these lascivious actions while on the job, actually sending sexual text messages at classified federal facilities. They were also watching pornography in other instances. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem said these individuals had access to critical information and intelligence and were entrusted to safeguard Americans from emergencies. Instead, they were consuming porn. In at least one other case, the pornography consumed was racially charged and involved bestiality. You can't make this stuff up, folks. These are the type of public servants who've been soaking up taxpayer money on the government dole for generations, but their free ride is over. It's time to downsize all of these government bureaucracies and replace them with nothing, giving power back to the states and the people as was intended under the Constitution. Emergency management should be handled by the states, who provide block funding, as opposed to these insensitive federal agencies. We saw this in the horrific hurricane in North Carolina, and these FEMA employees have been fired. Meanwhile, a racial motive has been confirmed in the brutal stabbing attack of the Ukrainian refugee in Charlotte, North Carolina. The perpetrator, DeCarlos Brown, ran through the train yelling, "I got that white girl, I got that white girl," after brutally stabbing his victim, Irna Zarazuta, who died shortly after the incident. FBI Director Kash Patel and Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy have announced a formal investigation into the incident, with the possibility of cutting federal transportation dollars to cities who refuse to put criminals behind the bars. DeCarlos Brown had been arrested 14 times for various criminal acts, many of them violent crimes, yet walked away without bail during a recent offense just earlier this year. President Trump, responding to the attack, said, "We cannot allow a depraved criminal element of violence and violent repeat offenders to continue spreading destruction and death throughout our country." Liberals, including CNN's chief media analyst Brian Stelter, are claiming that the publicization of this murder is baldly racist and accusing Republicans of turning it into a political symbol, when in fact all those media outlets who are reporting about it are the facts. In actuality, the murder speaks to a broader problem of black-on-white crime throughout the nation. The Black Lives Matter narrative on crime was laughably false. Black-on-white crime happens significantly more than white-on-black crime. It does not make me a racist to say that. It is an undisputed fact. The media has deliberately misled the public on this issue, and it's time that they understand the truth. They become the next victim of another death by diversity due to the failed experiment of multiculturalism. Pardon me. Cracker Barrel, in the meantime, has suspended the redesign of their restaurants after the incredible public backlash against their changing their logo. They announced that they are effectively ending the remodel of their stores across the country after there was a massive public pushback after they really dumbed down their logo and did away with its rustic character. This is an iconic American brand. Cracker Barrel backed down, stated in a press release, "Your old country store is here to stay. You've shared your voices in recent weeks, not just on our logo, but also on our restaurants, and we are continuing to listen. Today, we're suspending our remodels. If your restaurant hasn't been remodeled, you don't need to worry because it won't be." President Trump lauded the Cracker Barrel decision. It's noted that they had billions of dollars for the free press, and they ultimately did the right thing, returning to common sense. I had no plans to go to Cracker Barrel, but now that they have backed down, I'm going to go check it out. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Roger Stone. This is the Stone Zone on the Red Apple Audio Networks. Until tomorrow, God bless you and Godspeed.
Thanks for listening to The Stone Zone with Roger Stone. You can hear The Stone Zone with Roger Stone weeknights at 8 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?